starting a new interview today. It is with a renowned Finnish screen, set, and lighting designer who has created, I think, 100 ballets, several operas, also several Eurovision contests, and also many other works. His name is Mikki Kunttu, and I'm waiting for him to join me. It always takes a couple of minutes. If I don't see him, I will start again. But we have tried it before, and it works. So hello everybody who is watching it live or on recording later. I'm still waiting for Mikki to join us. Hope everybody is healthy. Just move the light. So yes, I see him, so I will now invite him. Yes, it's starting in a couple of seconds. Hi again.
Hi.
So thank you for joining us. Greetings from St. Petersburg to Helsinki. Close, but now impossible to talk live.
Yeah.
So, and today we will talk about your career and your vision. I will add actually some light to my place of your vision as a designer. And actually, it's my first question: how does one become a set, screen, and lighting designer? Do you have a background in drawing, painting, design? How does one join this profession?
I think for many of us, story is quite similar as mine. Somebody might say that we are like failed musicians. So that's kind of what happened. Like, so I went to work in a small local theater at the age of, say, like 17, 18, helping out at the theater, and then I pretty quickly kind of fell in love with the whole ensemble work and just this feeling of being around the theater community. And within the first year, I kind of realized that this might be something that would be amazing to do for a living. And then I applied to school, and I got into do some studies on lighting and sound and things like that. And then met people and happened to work with Tero Saarinen as my first design project. And we've been kind of like we worked since. So like I think it's close to 30 years we worked together. So
could you describe maybe as I said, for somebody, and I think it's quite a rare profession in a way, and maybe nobody from people who watch it will be the designer. Could you describe to us, maybe even starting from your early design, what do you have to produce first? Are you given music and performance, or ballet dancers dance for you and you think what could be the conception behind them, or you deliver some visual prop and then they begin to develop their work? So who comes first, and how does it appear in your head? What's the process of birth of your idea?
There's kind of like many ways around it. I think let's say like the most traditional way is that if it's a choreography, like a contemporary dance piece or even a classical ballet, that the choreography and sort of like the dance work exists already. So you would say like the choreographer has picked a theme that he or she wants to work around, work with, and then created the choreography, and then at some point in this development, like invites the different designers to join in the production. But sort of like the dance comes first, and then you have that material to create from. You have the dance, and you have the music, whatever it is. I mean, could also be like a silent piece, but usually there's some music or sound design. But you also have productions where you step in like before any steps are created, which usually, for example, is the case with me and Tero when we work. But we have such a long history, it's kind of different. So we start developing ideas, or just like talking about the theme of the next production already. Could be like a year or 1 year, 1.5 years or 2 years before he creates the first step for that. So then it's kind of like, you're working on your own, in your own craft on the same theme, and then you're, introducing whatever you're doing to, to the other one, and then you start finding like what things are parallel and which direction we should go to. And there's always like you get inspiration of each other. So that's kind of conceived. Then when you go to more like especially you go to classical ballet, then you can say, yes, the choreography exists and the piece kind of exists. So what we do is we create, if we make a new version of Swan Lake, or we make a new version of, Sleeping Beauty or something like that, that piece itself is existing already. And we are, sort of like proposing new sets and new visuals on the production. And the same goes, in a way in opera productions, that the score and music is existing. We already know how the music is gonna play out, and then you have the director who, he or she has, they have their own take on how, what are the topics of or sort of focuses of interpretations of this version of the opera. And so then those creations work in parallel. And sometimes the director has already the whole concept is ready, and this is what I'm going to do, and that's the way it's going to develop the story and everything. And then you are like helping with that. And other times also, like you start earlier, you start in the beginning of the creation, so you can sort of, in the same way as I work with Tero, for example, that you can start from nothing and then talk about it, and it develops. But of course, like the director makes the final choices of which way we go.
And how do you draw the line between saying, keeping the tradition, you can't be completely radical with the Swan Lake, can you? And introducing your own signature way of working with the light and stage. How adventurous have you been in your career?
I kind of always, I mean, I have a lot of appreciation for all the tradition, for example, of classical ballet. But I also feel really strongly that, we have these classical masterpieces such as Swan Lake and or other pieces. And so there's something really universally right or inspiring about these works, because they have been done like, over so long time, new version every place. And I think it would be kind of pity if not, like each time would not make their own version of this. So I don't feel like if you're doing visually a version that is not this kind of like a Bolshoi style, you know what I mean? Not in a bad way, but it's kind of like a classical ballet style of painted drops and stuff. If you choose not to work with that, it's not to it doesn't mean that you're turning your back to the tradition. It means that you want to work with more your, the tools and vocabulary of your own time. When that style was developed way back, the tools and all the visual in the world that we have now didn't exist. So I think each time we would be very rich also, that we have to give our own vision of the same work.
And who and what are your references? Basically, do you meet with your colleagues and say, get the ideas from them? Do you have conferences of world designers? And where do these new ideas come from? Do you have to keep updated on new technology, on in-stage lighting and screen? Do you read magazines? Do you watch new productions on festivals? How do you know that you are, say, at the front line?
Um, Maybe things like this, questions like this were a little bit more important to me personally when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
But I also have to say, like during the recent years, the past 10 years, all the world has changed so much. It's like everybody in the world sees your show even before it opens, because of the social media and because of the way that we treat the social media and the way that we share now.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost the opposite to the way it used to be. Like, we were making an opening night and it was absolutely forbidden to share any pictures of the productions before it opened.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you would almost go to court in some companies if you do that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like going completely the opposite way. So for me as a designer, I think this is both good and it's also kind of a burden, because you are kind of flooded with all these visual images every day. You open Instagram or Facebook, or you go online to see any kind of like website that deals with stuff that we do. So it also has led us to this kind of I would say like a dilemma, that I go to a sort of like what we call a founding production meeting somewhere like in Korea, or I go to a founding production meeting in the US or in Canada or in Finland. And it's happened a couple of times that in different places in the world, we tend to work with these kind of mood pictures, like this kind of like inspiration images that, the people bring, and, this has something to do, this is interesting, and could we do something like that and that. So you found these different meetings in different around the globe bringing the same images.
Uh-huh.
And that's in different productions, and
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of the result of the social media. It also is somehow also like flattens creativity, because it's a kind of like, it's a world of like formats and stuff like that. So there's a successful show that somebody like amazing, like what could I think of, like for example, the Beyonce show that S. Devlin designed.
Mm-hmm.
uh, Amazingly successful and beautiful design. But after that, like the next couple of years, 2-3 years after the show was opened, these same images came up like in every meeting. And so of course that might be like a big compliment for the designer, but I think it's especially these times, I think it's very important that you would sort of like try to look in within, like try to find if you want to be a creative person, like what it is, like what it is that you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
what
Ah,
is what is your own voice.
so basically now it's so easy to copy somebody even without being aware that you are copying them, yeah? Because the
Yeah,
images have spread globally.
yeah. And when you look at like when you're speaking like lighting and stage terms, it's the era of LED and the screens. It's the era of the
Mm-hmm.
videos and graphics and stuff like that. So it's both given us so much more possibilities. We can do a lot more, a lot faster. Now when we're doing production meetings, some places we talk about Instagram factor.
Mm-hmm.
So even one of the very important points on designing a show is that it has to look great on Instagram, because then you
Ah,
get
mm-hmm.
a lot of publicity out of that.
So basically, you design it with the knowledge of the frame, yes? So it won't be seen by people, but maybe more on Instagram, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know like how relevant it is, but it's just to tell something about these times that we're living in. It's like um, I don't know. It's not so much spoken in the world of in the sort of like a creative world of opera and ballet. But other than that, it's like when you go to entertainment, it's definitely a big.
Yes, that's what I wanted to ask about. You worked in such different genres as famous Cirque du Soleil shows,
Mm-hmm.
ballet, opera, and I was really surprised to see that you designed three Eurovision contests, right?
Mm.
Is it, you mean, were they in Finland or in three different countries?
Yeah, the first Eurovision Song Contest that I worked on was 2007 in Helsinki.
Mm-hmm.
And then second one 2013 in Sweden, and the third one was 2016 in Stockholm.
So what do you think about when you design a show for television? I even can't imagine how you think how it will look on the screen. Do you have to test it all the time, like to put props and then I don't know, make a testing TV show before you do the real one? How do you know how it will look for us?
Well,
Or
obviously, a show like Eurovision Song Contest is a massive production.
Mhm.
It's we do a lot of rehearsals in a show like that, and we do rehearsals, camera rehearsals before the artists are there, run the whole songs and program everything into the time code, so you can adjust things by frame, and you're really accurate with everything, and it's a long process too. It's for a designer, I would estimate it's maybe 9 months of work altogether. And the last 2-3 months, it's completely that. It's like Eurovision Song Contest in Stockholm in 2016. I think I spent something like 800 hours in 8 weeks working. So that's a lot. It's one of the heaviest productions in that in that sense for me, like ever.
but then how do you put your visions into real life? How are you aware that they are possible to achieve in opera, in ballet, and especially in your vision and Cirque du Soleil? Are there some ideas that you thought were possible, but they were not possible? How do you adjust your fantasy to the existing technology?
I think whenever there was a production that reached something new, or with like the end result stepped up, like sort of like higher, was playing on a higher note that you expected. Usually there was a big risk involved for me. There was a big factor of I don't know how it's going to be, and I kind of like felt that kind of factor has to be in play always when you want to sort of like find new ground, if you want to like advance. And I think it's a big part of arts. As soon as that factor is taken out, we are talking about entertainment. We're talking more about engineering something that we know that will work, and we can it will pay for itself. But it's very interesting to be able to take the creative risks also, and surprise, and that kind of element of surprise sort of like manifests itself in the best way, like when you're on stage and basically on the stage, you for the first time you get to go through whatever you've designed, and get to feel it in the space with the music and with the performers and everything, and you start to find the balance of things, and then if within your own work, like if something else resonates that you were not predicting, then you know that this is somehow successful. If it's resonating in a good way, of course.
But yeah, but who is your advisor or consultant on whether this would be available in reality? Like tells you about some small things about whether this light will go there or whether this computer screen can do this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple of things about this. It's firstly, like we work and I work a lot in 3D. So, I do computer models, so all the lights, and I check everything in 3D. All the set models are built in 3D. Some shows we can do this, something we call pre-programming. So I can basically program all the lights on the screen of the computer, and then I already know going on to the real stage that I know a lot of things that will not work. So, and that's maybe the main point for me concerning the pre-programming is you get rid of some mistakes and stuff like that. And another thing like related to the question might be the like working with some special people. Since really early days, I have some trusted people like who are technically very advanced, and they usually know all the answers to my stupid questions. So like I have a very trusted guy here in Finland called Johan West, who is always we work together since almost like since we were kids, and started with all the screen stuff, and moving lights came and everything, and we kind of like worked like hand in hand in the beginnings. And I still go back to him. And for example, we're doing the ring cycle in the National Opera here in Helsinki, and I'm using Johan also for that. So so it's nice to work with him again, and that's a really important part of the whole design process, that is then to kind of like a test. You test with the more advanced technical people, like is this possible to do, and a lot of times you find solutions that, for example, that they didn't think of, that would be that that anyone would need to do stuff like that. But from creative point of view, would think like, oh, maybe if we use it that way and that way, can we do that? And then you find like new solutions and stuff.
So in a way, you are, if we compare it to theater or music, you are both conductor, director, and the actor, in a way that you know how every small detail will work yourself. You don't need other people to do it. You know kind of the small things and the big vision design also. So you are in control on all parts, from top to the small details, right?
Well, yeah, I always felt like I have to be somewhat aware technically what can be done, how it's done, how much time it takes. Especially because like production schedules usually are really compressed. So we do these shows we do in really short time, and during the rehearsals, for example, talking about the ring cycle, like doing rehearsals, you need to be able to program all the lights, all the screens, all the stuff. And if I wouldn't know exactly, or at least up to a point, like if I want to do certain technical thing and change something, and I wouldn't understand how much time consuming that would be, and I would waste a lot of rehearsal time, we would not arrive so easily to a ready production. So I usually also like program my shows, at least as far as shows like theater go. Then when you go to Eurovision Song Contest and things like this, the shows are way too big for a designer to program.
Well, actually, at the moment, at the site of the National Opera, one could see the videos of your shows, like Kullervo, yes, could be seen there, and the first part of the ring, Raininkult in Finnish. So people who are watching it could also watch it, I think. So could you maybe describe first Kullervo, and also you mentioned that you worked with Tero Saarinen for the long time. So could you describe the collaboration with him, and also what is important to think about when you design a ballet or a dance show?
A lot of questions.
Yeah.
where could I start? Like, I think Kullervo was a very special production in terms of musically. It's a massive piece. It's like Sibelius, you know, grand, massive masterpiece from him, and you know, there's a big choir, and but first to start with, like, just the aspect of the music, it grows so massive, so big, and I had the idea that I wanted to have something that matches the music in the end. And technically, I knew that at the time there was one of the first like super bright light sources was out on the market, and I wanted to have a brightness that is almost like unbearable in the end, which we could not like achieve a year earlier. And then on the other hand, like working with Tero, this is again like where our sort of like long history comes to play, that describing it and the impact and what I'm looking for with this to him is maybe some way it's easier because he kind of trusts me from the get-go. And that was kind of combination. But then Kullervo also, like one of the ideas of the whole design of the stage, it was that there's different kind of clusters of light and screens, but nothing is static. Everything is moving. Everything is kind of kinetic. So it's not like a set place where we are, but from scene to scene, things are flying up and down and disappearing and appearing. And then we also used the turntable for the second part. And so there's a lot of kind of like, but in all that kind of grandiosity, you still had to see some kind of clearness, some kind of simplicity. And that's what I was looking for. So I think at times it's kind of also, it's easy to get lost in the sort of like a big stage, such as an opera house. And I usually try to see the stage as a really, really simple black hole, and three-dimensional object. So what else?
Yeah, well, maybe some additional one. Do you get the comments from the dancers if they say that it's not very comfortable for them to be in your set? Are you flexible to change it?
Yeah, that's kind of like a normal way of working, is that, if you have a certain piece of choreography that's very challenging to do in a particular light, then we usually just talk about it with the dancer, and I try to find out like what is it about it, especially like if it's something that I really like to keep. But I work with dance so long time, so I understand completely, like from the dancer's point of view. Like, and so usually we do adjustments, and I don't think memory is a nice tool, because I think maybe I forget the times that I really had to change something. But usually I have the memory I have is like every time we found a way how we can work around it. And that also kind of like relates to circus, like working with Cirque du Soleil, when the lighting, the lighting state where you are performing your tricks and your number, it's way more serious, because most of the time it can almost, you can say almost like it's a question of life and death.
Yes. So if the light comes to your eyes, yes.
Yeah. Or if the light changes in the wrong time. So that way, like that's one of the details that makes like working with circus a little bit more challenging, because during rehearsals you can't improvise as much as I usually do in dance. Also, like classical ballet is that way, that you have to hold back, but not as much as circus. dancers anyways, I mean, they want to fly, but they don't. And and but in circus, people actually do fly and do weird things in the air. So
and in Eurovision, did the singers come to you and say, "Look, I want something else"? Like, were they capricious in choosing their own the design of the set when they were on stage, or they didn't have a choice?
well, it's kind of yes and no. It's a dialogue. Each country, we call them delegations, like each country. So each delegation would have their own, they would give us input, like what they would see in their number, and we go through that. And sometimes I think nowadays, like most of the time, they can follow their own lead, and then the production supports that and brings like a suggestion, and you work together. But sometimes the proposals are not good, so our production says no, we will sort this out for you. It's also democratic in a way that it puts like everybody on the same line.
Yes, so you have created it for everyone, so you can't be accused of supporting one team more than another, right?
Yeah, and also not that, that's not even the question. I think it's more like you have a certain delegation coming from their country that don't have such a strong sense and cultural background from doing shows for big TV productions, and then you have another one that's doing top of the world multi-camera productions like every week, and you want to present these in the same show. So you want to help everybody to have equal opportunity in the competition. So of course there's a lot of diplomacy involved, and I think the last production I did, there was 42 or 43 countries, so there's a lot of correspondence, and yeah, so
well, that's quite impressive. I never knew that Eurovision has one designer. I actually thought that it was undemocratic, that each country came with their team to
yeah, I mean,
to the
nowadays
contest.
2016 was the first year when we opened like the door for the delegations to come in with their own screen content. And I think it also kind of opened the door a little bit more to their own. I mean, they could already use their own producer, or choreographer for the number, and of course, but I think nowadays they are more able to bring their whole thing. But then, as far as lighting goes, then Eurovision always has its own lighting designer that then has a dialogue with the delegation and sees like what's the storyline of the song, and what's the screen content going to be, and trying to put the pieces together and talk with the multi-camera director who is scripting every song, and it's a massive puzzle.
Yeah, well, let's turn to the thing that I saw in preparation, the ring. Well, the first installment, and I still hope it is now, the second one is rescheduled, so hopefully by August, fingers crossed, it will be able to continue. So could you describe Rheingold, maybe, like, I will just maybe briefly say to those who watch it, that it was very inventive in terms of technology on stage, and there were, for example, two giants who were represented by screens, while the real people stood on the back lines and sang like they were not presented on stage. Well, and then as usual, there were some decisions that were dealing with the dragon that had to appear. Yes. And well, that's only brief thing I could mention. I also remember I was struck that it had almost like a rainbow combination of light, like the basic lights, yes, like green, red, like, well, sorry if I'm talking wrong, but I felt that the lights were sort of basic and kind of Um, well, maybe I'll stop there because I'm not so good in in describing my impressions. So, could you tell me how you worked, how did you work with Anna, the director, on this conception? And also, how did you solve the difficulties? Because as I remember, the difficulties were there with these new things that you
Yeah, I mean that's
put there.
I mean there's always difficulties. Every production has its own little something or some things that turn out to be the thing that you can that you know it's gonna bug you until the end, and then in the end it's solved. So yeah, I mean Ring is especially difficult production or big task for a designer is because it's 4 operas together, and like the Ring we're doing now in Helsinki, from designer point of view, it's a concept on the first level. It's a concept design, so the same backbone of the design goes in every production in terms of the visual like sets elements that we use, and then each production has its own like specific set elements, but sort of the basic big setup of sets is always the same elements. And then also the using LED screens as part of the sets is kind of for me it's a logical continuation of that, and especially production like this, so you can do a lot of different things on the screens. And what else? Yeah, and lighting wise it's also very nice nowadays when the opera house just renewed their lighting rig. So it's all mostly LED. It's a clear change in quality of the lighting fixtures, and a nice thing is also for like musically, acoustically, it's way more silent than it used to be.
So that we don't hear actually when they go on and off, yeah?
No, usually like nowadays every house uses a lot of moving lights, and the moving lights in every moving light has a lot of fans to cool it, and the fans tend to make a lot of noise, especially the older generation. So now the new generation of LED spots is, for the first time, it's the quality of the light is good enough for theater, and the good thing is that the fans are way more silent, and also operationally they are more silent. So it's a nice change to see.
But as you have mentioned, as it was presumed, and it is presumed to be a long story with 4 operas, how long did it take you to envision it? How many drafts you had? Did you have to talk to the whole team who are part of the creation process? Like how long did it take for everybody in the team to agree that it will work for each opera and for the 4 operas together?
I think when we got there, like with Anna, we kind of like got to the basic solution, the basic setup like pretty fast, because we had a change of directors. So when Anna stepped in, then it was pretty efficient after that. And then obviously we are still working on the next ones, and like that. So yeah.
And I saw you, well, when you sit at the kind of at the end of the viewing hall and watch the rehearsals, what are you paying attention to? Is it every rehearsal, are you solving one problem, or are you seeing that your concept works smoothly, or like what are you looking at when we see you looking at stage at the rehearsal?
Well, as I'm programming myself all this show too, it's beginning of rehearsals. It's first it's like finding and setting the basic looks that they are right, and then all the rest of rehearsals is fine tuning and finding the right levels and exactly the right tones and stuff. So it's I don't know, it's almost like painting. It's because then you think like you see some detail here and you can adjust it, and another one here, it has an effect there, so we have to balance that too. Or oh no, it has a, you know, the change I just made has a big effect on the screen level, so I have to adjust that. And then it's this kind of like a slow puzzle in a way. And that's why I like to program myself these shows, because there are most of these things and small details especially are the stuff that it's very difficult to explain to someone else.
And can I ask, how did you do the giant thing? And I think there were several rehearsals when it didn't go smoothly. Like basically, as I understand, they had to go in parallel with the singing, right? So we see the mouth of a projection moving at the same time as the singer sings it, yeah, and that sometimes was wrong.
The
Right?
giant.
Yes, yeah.
That's really old school. Like first, the first intention was to create like a sort of like a virtual, or could create like a studio, like off stage, that we would do it, shoot it live and manipulate the image, and then it's on the screen. But then in the end, we decided that we are kind of we just filmed the singers in advance, and then this film was chopped in like really short clips. And then we have one guy who is timing that onto the score, the way they are singing. And then we have a million cues in the console for that. So it's kind of like it's always to do something like this. It's very challenging because the singer and the conductor, they are organic. So the tempo and and the music kind of lives from evening to evening, and especially some parts of the music, the tempo can be quite different from day to day. And you film the singer in certain tempo, and that's not going to change. So you have to live with the tempo that it was shot. So then there was a lot of work with that. I mean, I think it was I think in the end, I think we were close to as good as we can be with that.
And the dragon, is it also LED?
Yeah.
Projection, yeah?
As both, it's LED and projection, yeah.
Can I ask, when you yourself become a viewer, for example, musicians say that they can't switch the professional ear, so they kind of begin to analyze what they hear, how the concert is played professionally, what could have been done better. Are you doing the same with the shows of your colleagues? Can you watch a show with switching the designer brain in you?
Like if I go to see any show, I don't think I kind of like maybe like if there's something really disturbing. But even if you go to see something that is like super boring, it's still inspiring to always to be in the theater, So it's always like an inspiration to be in that space and go like, get like new thoughts. But I don't feel like I would suffer from it a lot. It's, it depends. But
are there some streams recently during the quarantine that you have watched that have inspired you that you didn't have time to watch in the real life?
I don't really like watch so much like performances and concerts and stuff like that. The only thing that comes to my mind now is I watched the Carmen from Tampere, the opera they just did, and that was really good. I really enjoyed the singing, and the whole production was super nice. Other than that, I'm watching more like Netflix stuff.
And actually, and what are you inspired for by? You said that it's difficult to get an original idea in the world of Instagram and social media, but then what are the sources of inspiration that can suddenly boost
Mm.
you?
I like to say nowadays that I think the work itself should be the inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of myself, I try to stop as much as possible working with these mood boards and go straight into like creating your own sketches of the design,
Mm-hmm.
and then try to, in a way, sort of like try to. I don't know if it's a bold thing to say, to try to be like original from the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
and then see where it's kind of like leads. So
But is it maybe? But what can be called original? Is it your memory of nature, of your childhood, some dreams that you had?
hmm. I think everything. I mean, I guess you carry like everything that you are and everything you ever were. You carry with you always. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's everything.
Well, that's a general answer, but but I don't know. Like, could you describe maybe some epiphanies that you suddenly woke up and saw the design,
Yeah,
or yeah?
one thing comes to my mind. We did a production with Tero called Morphed,
Mm-hmm.
and in Morphed, I did created sets with just ropes going around the stage. So it's a piece that's only for male dancers.
Mm-hmm.
So this masculinity and this connection between men was, let's say, like the masculinity was like a big theme. And for weeks and weeks and months, I was trying to think like what could be this kind of like a concrete piece of set or something like that could represent masculinity in a way that could also turn into a feminine thing. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then one day I was driving to the summer house and I parked my car, and then it struck me, ropes. It has to be ropes.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Well,
wasn't. So yeah,
yeah, actually, a rope could be seen as yin and yang,
yeah.
because it's always like this. And then maybe turning to travel, and I'm not sure how much time has passed now, but we will be cut off
Mm.
when the time is over. So how much do you have to travel? Is your life as busy as that of an international director or musician?
No, and especially now it's been not busy at all when everything's been cancelled.
Well, now yes, but before I remember you posted from Malta, yes,
Mm.
from Canada.
Yeah, when I was living in Montreal for 2 years, and now I moved back to Helsinki, and it kind of like every year is different. Like one year you do, like one year I was working only in Montreal, mostly on one circ production. Then another year you travel a little bit more, but I don't travel as much as musicians who tour. And usually in my line of work, like when you travel, then you stay there for the production for a couple of weeks or a month or stuff like that. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, and I also try to control it somewhat, at least, because I'm a single parent, so I have my two boys, and
Mm-hmm.
I usually don't want to be away more than a couple of weeks at a time max.
Mm-hmm. Are you teaching? Are there ways to teach students what you know? Do you do master classes? Are you invited to speak at conferences and so on?
Yeah, I've done a couple of like international keynotes in different places, and I've done master class, and so yeah, that's something that I do.
Mm-hmm.
I just did a Zoom lecture for University of Cincinnati like 2 days ago from here.
Mm-hmm. I can see a question. Actually, somebody has posted a question. Just a second. Can Mikki tell something about his workflow on choosing colors for the design?
Ah, yeah, I think mainly I could say like I would say that color is not the main topic for me usually.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's largely because of the fact that changing color and creating color nowadays is so easy with the equipment we have. So you can do combinations of color, you can change it in 2 seconds on the stage. What it has to do with a lot is, of course, like the costume design and the set design. But other than that, I'm not so like worried about it in a way.
Well, for the profane people like me, color is the first thing actually that stays in the memory. The color scheme. You kind of go from the production, and the color scheme, the general memories of colors are the things that stay with you.
Yeah.
Usually, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, if we have some time, can I finish by coming to the situation we're all in? You had an exciting story of traveling back to Helsinki. Could you share it with us? I was actually surprised that you were able to fly at all. Could you just describe to people, like, if you can, what happened? Were you asked to wait for 3 days in the airport?
No, the thing is, like, we were originally planning to come back to Finland after the summer holidays or for the summer and then stay. But as the COVID-19 situation changed like everything, and I was we were living in Canada on a work permit.
Mm-hmm.
So basically meant that, as we don't know how long this is going to be, basically meant that we wouldn't be any part of any support system back there. You would have to be permanent resident to apply for anything, and also living outside of Finland and not being a part of the Finnish social security system, I wouldn't have any chance to apply here either. So that kind of like accelerated our move, and basically packed everything, sold everything in 3 weeks, and got flights. And so we had to go to the airport a little bit earlier, like one night earlier than planned, because we didn't have any more furniture in the house. So that was the reason.
Well, that seems like a real adventure, and I was surprised at your photos of the completely empty airports that looked apocalyptic. Do you think that your world of designing the shows would be dependent on the general situation of the shows coming back to life? Like, are you now commissioned new things, or is everyone uncertain whether they will happen?
I think generally we have some idea that, okay, everybody thinks that this is the way it's going to go. But I'm afraid that this is going to last longer. So what we are seeing now in terms of like in the fields of culture and, you know, concerts and performances and entertainment and everything, what we are seeing now, this is nothing yet. So when the summer is over, then we're going to see really the impact, and it's not going to be nice. I think this is going to last for at least for a year.
Really?
And, yeah.
Well, I can only say that I can do lots of interviews during the year, but I was hoping that I could come to Finland in August. You know?
Yeah, that's only to say what the impact on our profession, you know, of performing artists and everybody around that, theaters and festivals and concerts and stuff like that. This is going to be the last thing that's going to be allowed back.
Ah, yes, they will think that it's non-essential in a way, yeah?
No, the thing is that everything is based on people gathering together in small confined space. So this is going to be the last thing that they allow. And which means that, well, I think we'll be happy if some performances are back, like for example, like the Valkyria we're trying to do in August.
Yeah.
I'm super happy if we can do it, but I think mainly concerts and stuff like that is earliest end of the year.
How are you trying sort of to keep in shape in terms of ideas? Do you now have time to look at art albums, or like what are you doing to kind of to keep your professional mind busy?
Well, I still have a couple of productions that are kind of on the table for 21. And then I hope that there's going to be more, of course. But in a way, now that everything that got cancelled now and wiped out is the situation is definitely like catastrophic. But it is what it is, so we have to live with it and change our lives for at least for the time being, and who knows what it's going to be after.
But can I ask, do you think that now you could have applied to design a TV show or a Netflix show, the thing that would depend on internet more than on the real performance?
Yeah, who knows? That might be a nice opportunity to do that. But I think at the moment, like we're doing a lot of, like we are doing now, we're doing a lot of this, we're doing a lot of online stuff where even like among professionals, I'm doing one thing next week and there's another one coming, and so we're doing things for free. So this is also something that not all of this can go on. Like people have to live. So that I think it's going to change within a couple of months. Like
so that these online things will become paid ones, yeah?
I think it has to. I think it has to be that way. I don't think it. I mean, stuff that we do now, this will remain, but I think all the professional stuff, it cannot stay online for free.
Well, and the final maybe question to finish is, I see that you are doing the runs in the city. So can I ask, is Helsinki under strict quarantine, or people are allowed to walk around? And
yeah, you can walk around, but you have to have a safety distance. Just to have to know what you're doing. I do runs. I train a little bit of running, and Helsinki is a good place to run because it's not packed with people to begin with, and so you have a lot of space and it's easy to go around. If there's somebody standing somewhere, you can go like 5 meters around and like that. Like the last 3 weeks in Montreal, I didn't go running at all because Montreal is more packed with people, and we wanted to be sure that we get out of there and arrive here so that we are healthy and safe. So that was different. And I would say, like, some places that are more packed with people, this distancing thing is very difficult.
And can I ask, in Helsinki, are people doing this same kind of queuing to shops, that you are not allowed more than a certain number of people in the shop?
Well, actually, I don't know so much because we are under quarantine. So we have to stay like a couple of weeks here. So luckily I used to live right next door. So I have some friends here that can go shopping for us. So I think still it's pretty okay here. Montreal, I had to queue for some shops, like they were controlling the amount of people.
Well, I hope you get into the constructive routine that will keep you happy, and kind of the time will flow in the way you want under the circumstances. And greetings from St. Petersburg. I'm learning Finnish, so hopefully if the rehearsals happen in August, I would be able to produce some sentences in Finnish and understand what you and Anna will be talking about.
Nice. Спасибо.
Пожалуйста. Пока.